I sat at the far end with my two kids, Daniel and Sophie. Daniel was 16, tall and thin, wearing a button-down shirt from Goodwill that I'd helped him pick out last week. Sophie was 13, her dress a hand-me-down from a neighbor. They looked nice, clean, presentable. But next to Marcus's kids, Tyler and Madison, dripping in designer labels, the difference was obvious. Marcus had been making comments all afternoon. Little digs. Subtle enough that most people missed them, but I caught every single one. Must be nice not having to worry about private school tuition, he'd said earlier, loud enough for the whole table to hear. Public school is so much simpler. I'd smiled and nodded. Let it go. But then came dessert, and Marcus had apparently decided subtle wasn't working anymore. Tyler, Madison, tell everyone about Paris, Marcus announced, leaning back in his chair with that satisfied smile I'd known since childhood. They just got back last week. 5-star hotels, the Louvre, Versailles. Spent 2 weeks soaking up culture. Tyler, 14 and already mimicking his father's smugness, launched into a detailed description of their vacation. The restaurants, the shopping on the Champs-Élysées, the private tour guide. I watched Daniel's jaw tighten. My son had been working nights at a grocery store for the past 4 months, stocking shelves from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. on school nights, handing me most of his paycheck to help with our rent. He'd never complained. Not once. And where did your kids go this summer, Sarah? Marcus's wife, Jennifer, asked, her voice dripping with false sweetness. She knew exactly where we'd gone. Nowhere. We stayed local, I said evenly. Daniel had his job. Sophie had soccer camp. Soccer camp, Marcus repeated like I'd said something hilarious. Right. The free one at the Park District. Sophie looked down at her plate. Daniel's hand tightened around his fork. Nothing wrong with free programs, I said quietly. Sophie learned a lot. Of course, Marcus said, waving his hand dismissively. Not everyone can afford the European experience. Different priorities. Some people focus on, he paused, looking at Daniel. Working at grocery stores. Building character, I suppose. My mother, sitting near Marcus, laughed a little too loudly. She'd always favored him, the successful son. The one who'd married well, climbed the corporate ladder, bought the big house in the right suburb. Daniel works very hard, I said, keeping my voice level. I'm proud of him. Oh, I'm sure, Marcus said. Minimum wage builds character. Much better than, say, summer internships at investment firms. He gestured to Tyler. Tyler spent his summer learning about portfolio management. Networking with my colleagues. Real career building. I saw Daniel's face flush. He stared at his dessert, untouched. Then Marcus went for the kill. Your kids shop at thrift stores while mine vacation in Europe. He laughed, looking around the table for validation. I mean, that's just reality, right? Different tax brackets, different lifestyles. Nothing to be ashamed of, Sarah. You're doing your best with what you have. My son's face fell. I watched 16 years of quiet dignity crumble in his eyes. The kid who worked 40-hour weeks on top of school. Who never asked for anything. Who handed me his paychecks without hesitation. Who wore second-hand clothes without complaint. Something in his expression broke my heart and steeled my resolve at the same time. I pulled out my phone, checking my emails like I just remembered something. The table had moved on to other conversations, but Marcus kept glancing at me, satisfied with his performance. I stood up calmly. About those vacations, I said, my voice cutting through the chatter. The table went quiet. The trust fund paying for them? I'm the trustee. And your beach house mortgage? I just bought it. Marcus's smile froze. What? Tomorrow at noon, I continued, still calm, you'll learn why you should have read the trust documents our grandfather left, the ones I've been managing for 15 years. Sarah, what are you talking about? My mother's voice had an edge of panic. I looked at Marcus. You know the monthly distributions you get? The ones that paid for Paris, Tyler's private school, this house's down payment, that new Tesla in your driveway. That's my inheritance, Marcus said, but his voice wavered. No, I said. It's our grandfather's trust. He left me as the sole trustee when I turned 25. You get monthly distributions at my discretion. I've approved every single payment for 15 years without ever mentioning my role. I thought family should support family. Jennifer had gone pale. Marcus, what is she talking about? The beach house in South Haven? I continued. The one you bought 5 years ago? You took out a mortgage for $400,000. Last month, the bank sold that mortgage to a private investment group. I'm the private investment group. Marcus stood up. You're lying. I pulled up my email and turned the phone toward him. Tomorrow at noon you're meeting with Patterson and Associates. They're the trust attorneys. They'll explain exactly how the trust works, including the clause that allows me to reduce or eliminate distributions if I determine they're not being used appropriately. You can't do that, Marcus said, but he sounded uncertain. I absolutely can. Grandfather's instructions were specific. The money is meant to support family members who demonstrate financial responsibility, humility, and kindness, not to fund arrogance. My mother grabbed my arm. Sarah, don't be ridiculous. Marcus deserves that money. Why? I asked simply. Because he's successful. He's successful because I approved $85,000 in distributions every year for the past 15 years. That's $1.2 million, Mother. Money I could have used. Money that could have paid for Daniel's college fund. For Sophie's activities. For a house instead of the apartment we rent. The table was silent. Daniel stared at me with wide eyes. Instead, I continued, I approved every distribution Marcus requested. The Europe trips. The private schools. The country club membership. The investment in his business 5 years ago. Remember that, Marcus? $50,000 when your startup needed capital? That came from the trust, too. I didn't know you controlled it, Marcus whispered. No, you didn't. Because I never told you. Because I thought we were family. Because when grandfather made me trustee, he told me the money should flow quietly without ego, supporting those who needed it. Sarah, Jennifer said desperately, Marcus didn't mean. Yes, he did, I said. He meant every word. Just like he's meant every condescending comment for the past decade. Every reminder that his kids go to private school. Every mention of vacations we can't afford. Every subtle dig about our clothes, our car, our neighborhood. I looked at Daniel. You want to know why we shop at thrift stores? Because I chose to live on my teacher's salary alone. Every penny from the trust I directed to Marcus, because I thought supporting family mattered more than pride. Your teacher's salary? My mother looked confused. I'm a high school English teacher, Mom. I make $48,000 a year. The trust generates approximately $200,000 annually. I could take half and still have plenty for Marcus. I could have bought a house years ago. Could have sent my kids to private school. Could have taken them to Europe. Why didn't you? Sophie asked quietly. Because I wanted you two to understand the value of work. Of humility. Of not judging people by their tax brackets. I looked at Marcus. Lessons apparently not everyone learns. Marcus sat down heavily. What are you going to do? Tomorrow the attorneys will present you with modified distribution terms. You'll receive $25,000 a year going forward. Enough to supplement your actual income, which is considerable. Not enough to fund your current lifestyle. $25,000? Jennifer's voice cracked. We can't maintain this house on. Exactly, I said. So you'll need to make choices. Like whether you really need a house this size. Whether private school is essential. Whether Europe is a priority. I turned to the mortgage papers on my phone. The beach house mortgage. Monthly payments are $3,200. I'm calling the loan due in full in 60 days. 60 days? We can't pay $400,000 in 60 days. Then you'll sell it. Or refinance with another bank if they'll approve you without trust income guarantees. I paused. Or you could ask nicely. Explain why you think you deserve an extension. Try some humility. Marcus's face was red. You're doing this because I made one comment? One comment. I almost laughed. Marcus, you've been making comments for 10 years. Every holiday. Every birthday. Every family gathering. You've made my children feel less than because we don't live your lifestyle. A lifestyle I funded while raising 2 kids on a teacher's salary. I didn't know, he said weakly. You didn't care to know. You saw me struggling and felt superior instead of curious. Felt entitled instead of grateful. My mother found her voice. Sarah, this is cruel. He's your brother. I'm his sister, I replied. The one he just humiliated in front of the entire family. Again. I looked at Daniel. The one whose son works 40 hours a week to help with rent while Marcus's son interns at daddy's firm for experience. I started gathering our things. We're leaving. Daniel, Sophie, get your coats. Wait, Marcus said. Can we talk about this? Tomorrow. At the attorney's office. Noon. I helped Sophie with her jacket. Bring your financial statements. All of them, income, expenses, assets, debts. The attorneys will need to review everything before restructuring the distributions. Restructuring. Hope crept into his voice. The trust is meant to support family, not enable arrogance. If you can demonstrate that you understand that, if you can show genuine change, we'll discuss appropriate support levels. I met his eyes. But Marcus, the days of blank checks while you mock my children are over. We walked toward the door. Daniel hadn't said a word since my revelation. In the car, silence stretched for several minutes. Then Daniel spoke. You've been giving him money all this time? Yes. For 15 years? Yes. While he trailed off. While we lived modestly. Yes. Sophie leaned forward from the back seat. Why? I drove for a moment before answering. Because when Grandpa died, he told me the money was for family. He made me promise to use it to help the people I loved. I thought Marcus needed it more than we did. He was starting his business, starting his family. I thought I was doing the right thing. Was it? Daniel asked. The right thing? I don't know anymore, I admitted. I wanted you both to grow up understanding that money isn't everything. That character matters. Work ethic matters. Kindness matters. I think I succeeded at that. Look at you, Daniel, 16 years old, working nights to help your family. Never complaining. That's character. Uncle Marcus's kids wouldn't do that, Sophie said quietly. No, I agreed. They wouldn't. And that's the difference money makes when it comes without earning it. Daniel was quiet for another minute. Then he asked, Are you really going to cut him off? I'm going to restructure the distributions to be appropriate. He has a good job. A high salary. He doesn't need $85,000 a year from the trust. That was enabling, not helping. What will you do with the extra money? Sophie asked. I smiled. Well, there's this thing called a college fund. And maybe we could look at a small house. Nothing fancy. But something ours. And Europe? Daniel asked, a hint of humor in his voice. Maybe someday. When we've saved for it ourselves. So it means something. We drove home to our small apartment. The one with the thrift store furniture and the second-hand everything. And for the first time in years I felt no shame about it. Only pride in the two remarkable kids sitting beside me. Tomorrow Marcus would learn the details. He'd see the numbers, the terms, the conditions. He'd understand exactly how the past 15 years had been funded. But tonight I sat with my children and explained their grandfather's trust. How he'd built a small fortune through careful saving and smart investing. How he'd chosen me as trustee because he trusted my judgment. How I'd honored that trust by supporting family, even when that family didn't appreciate it. Will Uncle Marcus hate you? Sophie asked. Maybe for a while. But eventually, if he's smart, he'll understand. Money without gratitude is just numbers. Family without respect is just biology. Daniel nodded slowly. For what it's worth, Mom, I think Grandpa chose the right person. And sitting in our modest living room wearing our thrift store clothes, I finally believed he had. The next day at noon, Marcus learned exactly how his lifestyle had been subsidized. The attorneys explained every distribution, every payment, every quiet transfer I'd approved over 15 years. He learned he'd owe his beach house mortgage in full in 60 days. He learned his annual distribution would drop to $25,000. He learned that continued support required annual financial reviews and proof of charitable giving. Most importantly, he learned that the sister he'd mocked had been his benefactor all along. 2 months later, Marcus sold the beach house. 6 months later, Tyler transferred to public school. A year later, Marcus started volunteering at a food bank, and for the first time in our adult lives, he asked about my life instead of talking about his. It took time. Real change always does. But the day Marcus showed up at our apartment with a college fund contribution for Daniel, matching the amount Daniel had earned that year working nights, I knew something had shifted. He didn't apologize with words. He apologized with understanding. With humility. With the kind of family support that goes both ways. And that's worth more than any trust fund distribution could ever be.